I never anticipated marriage transforming into such a twisted labyrinth, filled with concealed motives and whispers disguised as promises. My husband, Adrian, appeared flawless at first glance. Broad-shouldered, confident, financially stable, endlessly admired by colleagues. Yet beneath that polished surface existed fractures invisible to outsiders but increasingly obvious to me. Nights grew colder, conversations shorter, touches mechanical. Desire, once blazing, withered until silence replaced affection. My arrival into his aristocratic family seemed welcomed initially, although subtle scrutiny lingered behind polite smiles. His mother, Eleanor, commanded every gathering with calculated elegance. Her gaze lingered longer than comfort allowed, dissecting me like a merchant evaluating questionable goods. She maintained an aura of wealth, prestige, influence. Beneath those jewels and pearls rested something sharper, an agenda carved from ambition rather than compassion. I remember vividly the evening her plan unfolded. She invited me alone, excluding Adrian deliberately, insisting upon private discussion. Her mansion radiated opulence. Marble floors glimmered, chandeliers scattered golden light across velvet drapes, antique portraits observed silently. Servants vanished conveniently, leaving Eleanor and me seated within an immense drawing room scented faintly of roses and expensive wine. She began softly, voice low yet deliberate. Compliments about my appearance felt rehearsed, artificial. Gradually her words shifted, circling around her true intention. She didn't want me tethered permanently to her son. She believed Adrian deserved someone else, someone molded entirely by her vision of dynasty. She considered me unsuitable, not because of character flaws, but because I represented independence, unpredictability, uncontrollable spirit. Qualities she deemed threat. When she produced an envelope thick with crisp currency, my chest tightened. She placed it upon the table like a wager in some perverse game. Her proposition: disappear quietly, request divorce, leave Adrian without scandal. In exchange, financial security beyond anything my modest upbringing had ever provided. Shock battled fury inside me. Part of me wanted to hurl the money into her perfectly lined face, storm from that chamber, never glance backward. Another part trembled at temptation, freedom without struggle, escape from a passionless union, opportunity to pursue desires denied within suffocating respectability. My pulse quickened as though my own morality were bargaining against my hunger. I asked her why, demanding honesty. Eleanor's expression hardened, lips curled slightly, satisfaction seeping through. She admitted control mattered more than love. She wanted grandchildren raised according to her exact blueprint, wives who obeyed silently, households mirroring her image. I, apparently, disrupted that vision. Leaving that mansion, envelope clutched within my handbag, I felt transformed. Guilt gnawed at my conscience, yet exhilaration stirred deeper. Someone recognized my worth enough to bribe me, strangely empowering despite the insult. My footsteps echoed across the driveway, night air crisp, moonlight gleaming upon polished cars waiting like sentinels. I returned home long after midnight. Adrian snored gently beside me, oblivious. His features seemed softer in sleep, innocent almost, yet my perception had shifted irreversibly. I wondered whether affection had ever truly anchored us, or whether convenience, appearances, and family pressure stitched our vows together. Clutching that envelope beneath pillow, my mind wandered toward possibilities. Perhaps another man's touch could revive my dormant fire. Perhaps secrecy could replace stagnation with thrill. Perhaps betrayal, though dangerous, promised liberation. Eleanor believed she manipulated me, yet I sensed empowerment hidden within her scheme. She desired compliance, but she accidentally awakened hunger I never dared admit. That night marked a threshold. I crossed silently into shadowy territory where loyalty tangled with lust, morality clashed with longing, and every choice carried consequences impossible to undo. Morning sunlight filtered gently through sheer curtains, warming skin already restless after sleepless thoughts. I stretched beside Adrian, pretending serenity, though underneath calm breaths, imagination raged wildly. That envelope remained hidden beneath folded sweaters inside my drawer, weighty like a secret heartbeat. Each glance toward it sparked curiosity, like forbidden fruit calling from distant branches. I dressed carefully, selecting crimson silk blouse clinging suggestively across curves rarely celebrated anymore. Adrian hurried past, phone buzzing incessantly, eyes locked upon spreadsheets rather than wife. His lips brushed my cheek absently, lacking spark, leaving me craving electricity. My loneliness expanded, filling corridors, spreading into every shadow. Later, while wandering along busy streets, I found myself entering a cafe near the university where I once studied literature. Familiar aromas of roasted beans swirled, pulling me toward nostalgia. Seated in the corner, scribbling within a leather notebook, was Marcus, an old classmate whose presence had always unsettled me. Tall, rugged, with dark curls tumbling carelessly, his gaze carried intensity that lingered beyond politeness. Recognition flickered instantly. He rose, smile genuine, arms opening with warmth absent from my home. Conversation flowed naturally, laughter spilling without effort. He listened attentively, leaning forward, absorbing every word as though nothing beyond our table existed. My chest tightened, recalling long-forgotten sensations, being desired, truly seen, wholly alive. When his hand brushed mine casually, sparks ignited, startling yet irresistible. Heat climbed my neck, cheeks flushed, heart pounding. Memories of Eleanor's bribe swirled, merging temptation with opportunity. Perhaps destiny orchestrated this meeting, providing an alternative pathway. We strolled afterward beneath blossoming trees, petals drifting around us like silent witnesses. Marcus spoke passionately about teaching, poetry, dreams unfettered by corporate demands. I confessed struggles, loneliness, expectations suffocating inside Adrian's world. He didn't judge. Instead, his eyes softened, voice hushed, words soothing. At one moment, he stopped walking, fingers grazing my jawline gently, pausing long enough for consent to bloom. I leaned closer instinctively, lips parting, breath mingling, until our mouths finally collided. The kiss erupted, urgent, hungry, intoxicating. My knees weakened, yet his arms steadied me, pulling closer, deepening contact. Every nerve awakened violently, body pleading for more. Guilt stabbed quickly afterward. I pulled away, trembling, whispering excuses. Marcus studied me silently, understanding flickering behind pupils. He promised patience, assured me nothing required rushing, yet his touch lingered, promising future fire. That evening, returning home, I confronted reflection inside mirror. My hair tangled from wind, lips swollen from passion. Shame warred with exhilaration. Adrian asked nothing, too busy closing deals from his laptop. He noticed no change, offered no suspicion. That ignorance wounded me almost more than betrayal itself. Did he love me so little that he failed to sense another man's imprint? I opened drawer, retrieved envelope, stared at bills stacked neatly. Eleanor's scheme had planted seeds, but Marcus's kiss nurtured them into blossoms. I realized this wasn't solely about money. It was about desire reclaiming territory once surrendered. Perhaps betrayal wasn't tragedy, it was resurrection. Lying beside Adrian that night, I closed eyes, pretending slumber while imagining Marcus's mouth exploring, hands roaming. My body betrayed me, shivering, thighs pressing together, heart racing. I silently admitted truth. Temptation already conquered me. I drifted into dreams colored scarlet, filled with lustful embraces, secret rendezvous, whispered poetry against skin. A new chapter had begun, whether I was ready or not. Days blurred into nights, yet within me a storm grew louder, impossible to silence. Adrian remained consumed by endless calls, dinners with investors, conferences stretching until dawn. His absence created space where longing flourished unchecked. I occupied that emptiness with fantasies of Marcus, His touch, his voice, his promises whispered between verses of poetry I could still recall word for word. I began inventing errands, slipping from our house during afternoons, heart hammering as I messaged Marcus. Our first deliberate meeting occurred inside an art gallery downtown, chosen carefully because anonymity thrived among strangers. Paintings of naked bodies surrounded us, each brushstroke echoing desires I attempted to suppress. Standing beside him, I felt heat radiating, almost unbearable. We drifted quietly into a secluded corner. He leaned close, breath warm against ear, words murmuring verses of Rilke, yet laced with hunger unmistakable. I closed eyes, surrendering. His lips found mine again, urgent, claiming. I clutched his shirt, pressing closer until nothing separated us but clothing. For the first time in years, I felt worship. Later, inside his apartment, shadows swallowed us. Curtains drawn, shoes discarded hastily, clothing scattered across wooden floor. His hands traced lines across my back, mapping territory with reverence and fire. My body arched, welcoming every caress, surrendering control. We collided with raw intensity, gasps filling room, nails digging, bodies trembling, souls igniting. Shame dissolved entirely within pleasure's flood. Afterward, lying tangled together, Marcus stroked my hair gently. His eyes glowed not merely with lust but tenderness, as though he cherished my existence beyond flesh. That gentleness pierced me deeper than any touch. He whispered, "You deserve to be seen," and I nearly cried. Yet guilt refused to vanish completely. Returning home, showering quickly, covering marks along neck with scarves, I rehearsed excuses. Adrian barely looked up when I entered, still absorbed by glowing laptop screen. He mumbled about quarterly reports, never once questioning fragrance clinging to skin that wasn't his. That indifference both relieved and enraged me. One evening, while I dressed for another book club, Eleanor telephoned unexpectedly. Her voice carried authority disguised as civility. She requested lunch together, insisting upon discretion. My stomach twisted. Meeting her again meant navigating sharp daggers concealed beneath pearls. We sat across from each other inside an exclusive restaurant, crystal glasses shimmering under chandeliers. Eleanor sipped wine leisurely, eyes narrowing as though measuring every blink. Finally she remarked, "You look radiant." The comment unsettled me. Did she suspect? Could she sense Marcus upon me like perfume? She probed subtly, asking about Adrian's schedule, my moods, our intimacy. Each question sliced carefully, reminding me she wielded power like a surgeon's blade. I deflected skillfully, hiding truth behind polite smiles. Still, I couldn't shake impression she smelled betrayal hovering around me. That night, lying awake, I realized my double life balanced precariously. One slip could expose everything: Adrian's rage, Eleanor's satisfaction, society's condemnation. Yet despite danger, desire kept pushing me forward, insatiable. Marcus had awakened something unstoppable, and no amount of guilt could bury it again. I thought of that envelope once more, its money untouched. Eleanor believed she purchased my exit. Instead, she inadvertently purchased my awakening. What she set in motion could never be undone. The path ahead promised both ecstasy and ruin, yet I knew one truth with absolute certainty: I would continue. Because once you've tasted forbidden fire, ordinary air feels like suffocation. Autumn descended swiftly, covering sidewalks with golden leaves that crunched beneath hurried footstep. My clandestine meetings with Marcus multiplied, each encounter fiercer, more intoxicating, more reckless. Desire grew so consuming that moments apart from him felt unbearable. I lived two separate existences: dutiful wife inside a sterile home, ravenous lover tangled within sweat-soaked sheets elsewhere. We began choosing increasingly daring locations. A dimly lit hotel room near the river became our sanctuary, its windows overlooking shimmering water that reflected our fever. Hours dissolved as our bodies collided repeatedly, urgency driving us beyond caution. Marcus whispered verses against my skin, words about hunger, eternity, rebellion. I absorbed every syllable, letting them tattoo themselves across memory. Yet secrecy began cracking. Adrian's eyes lingered longer upon me during dinners, suspicion flickering though unspoken. One evening he asked bluntly, "Why are you always gone?" His tone carried more curiosity than accusation, yet my pulse spiked violently. I stammered something about volunteering, fabricating details swiftly. He nodded, distracted by his buzzing phone, but unease remained etched upon his brow. The following afternoon Eleanor summoned me again, her insistence leaving no room for refusal. We met at her estate where chandeliers glistened and silence weighed heavily. She examined me with predatory patience, finally remarking, "Your glow has changed." I forced laughter, blaming skincare products, but her lips curved knowingly. I realized with chilling clarity that Eleanor sensed everything. She leaned forward, voice lower, sharper. "Remember our arrangement. My son must remain unscathed. You, however, appear dangerously careless." Her words cut deeper than any blade. Did she follow me? Hire spies? Or was maternal instinct sharper than I imagined? Either way, fear churned inside me, colliding violently with defiance. That night I confronted Marcus, confessing Eleanor's veiled threat. His jaw tightened, fists clenching. "She cannot dictate your happiness," he declared fiercely. "You're not a prisoner in her empire." His certainty both comforted and frightened me. Could love truly withstand the storm Eleanor promised to unleash? Despite risks, my appetite for Marcus refused to diminish. In fact, fear only heightened lust, transforming every kiss into rebellion, every thrust into defiance. We clung together as though the world intended to rip us apart. Within his arms, I rediscovered not just passion but identity, wild, unrestrained, alive. Still, paranoia crept closer. A car idled suspiciously outside Marcus's apartment one evening. Footsteps echoed behind me as I exited a boutique. Anonymous messages began appearing on my phone. "Careful. People talk. Secrets don't last forever." Whether from Eleanor, Adrian, or strangers, I couldn't determine. But each note chilled me, tightening knots within my stomach. Adrian, meanwhile, surprised me with sudden attentiveness. He invited me to dinner at an upscale restaurant, ordered my favorite wine, held my hand as though rediscovering intimacy. For a fleeting moment guilt threatened to drown me. Perhaps reconciliation remained possible, perhaps if I tried, yet when Marcus's name flashed across my hidden phone, my choice became undeniable. I belonged elsewhere. That night, lying beside Adrian, I realized my double life was accelerating toward explosion. Choices loomed heavy, every step forward narrowing possible escapes. Eleanor's money still sat untouched, Adrian's love hung by threads, Marcus's devotion burned hotter each day. I whispered into darkness, confessing silently, "I cannot stop." And with that admission, I surrendered fully to destiny's dangerous design. Whispers became footsteps, and footsteps became revelations. Adrian's suspicion matured into action. One evening, as I returned from Marcus's apartment, my husband waited in the living room, eyes sharp, posture rigid. No phone distracted him this time. Instead, a half-empty glass of whiskey trembled within his grip. His voice, low yet cutting, demanded, "Who is he?" The question shattered my facade. I stuttered denials, excuses, but Adrian's gaze pierced through lies like sunlight burning fog. He slammed his glass onto the table, liquid splashing, fury trembling through every word. "Do not insult me further." "I know." My knees weakened, heart hammering. For a moment I imagined confessing everything, begging forgiveness. But images of Marcus's touch surged, drowning hesitation. I stayed silent. Adrian's silence stretched ominously before he whispered, "Mother warned me." My blood chilled instantly. Of course Eleanor already knew, perhaps orchestrated the entire exposure. My betrayal had granted her victory. Rage twisted inside me, not toward Adrian, but toward that manipulative woman who pulled strings from gilded shadows. I fled upstairs, locking myself away, trembling uncontrollably. Messages from Marcus buzzed upon my phone. "Are you safe? Tell me where." His urgency steadied me. That night, I sneaked out, leaving Adrian pacing angrily downstairs. I rushed to Marcus, collapsing into his arms, sobbing, trembling, confessing everything. He held me fiercely, whispering against my hair, "We'll run away. Together. Away from them all." His words painted visions intoxicating yet terrifying. Escape, freedom, life without chains of family expectation. But reality's claws dug deep. Adrian controlled finances, properties, reputation. Eleanor wielded power like an empress. Walking away meant not just scandal but war. Still, passion conquered fear. Marcus led me into his bedroom, stripping away doubts with kisses that burned hotter than fire. Our bodies collided desperately, as though proving love could outlast destruction. Every thrust echoed defiance, every moan silenced threats beyond those walls. I surrendered entirely, consumed by lust stronger than any vow. Afterward, lying entwined beneath rumpled sheets, Marcus whispered plans: new cities, new names, fresh beginnings. His certainty painted hope across my mind. Yet doubts lingered. Could love survive outside secrecy? Or would reality crush us once sunlight exposed desire? Meanwhile, Adrian's anger transformed into icy detachment. Days passed without conversation. He left earlier, returned later, barely acknowledging my presence. I should have felt relief, but his silence carried menace. He was planning something. I could sense calculations unfolding silently, strategy born of wounded pride. Eleanor, unsurprisingly, contacted me again. Her tone remained deceptively polite, yet sharpened with triumph. "My son deserves better," she declared during our clandestine meeting. "You've proven me correct." Then, almost casually, she threatened, "Accept my offer now, disappear quietly, or consequences will grow unpleasant." Her eyes gleamed with satisfaction, as though she finally trapped me completely. Leaving her estate, I realized my choices narrowed drastically. Either surrender to Eleanor's demand, vanish into anonymity with her money, or gamble everything on Marcus's promise of escape. Adrian's love already fractured, Eleanor's control tightening, gossip circling dangerously. That night, Marcus kissed me fiercely, whispering, "Choose me. We can build something real." His conviction radiated like sunlight piercing storm clouds. My heart raced, knowing tomorrow demanded irreversible decision. I stood at a precipice, between ruin and rebirth, between safety and passion, between chains and freedom. And deep within, despite fear clawing at my ribs, I knew which path my body, my soul, my hunger had already chosen. Dawn arrived heavy, clouds pressing against the horizon as though even the sky anticipated catastrophe. I moved through the kitchen mechanically, pouring coffee, though my hands trembled so violently that drops splattered across marble counters. Adrian entered silently, expression carved from stone. He studied me for a long moment before setting a document upon the table. "Divorce papers. Sign," he said flatly, voice void of emotion. My throat closed. The neat lines of ink blurred as tears threatened. Adrian's eyes, once warm, now reflected only betrayal and exhaustion. I reached for words, excuses, pleas, but none arrived. He turned away, refusing to grant me even anger, only resignation. Somehow that indifference hurt worst of all. Before I could respond, the doorbell echoed through the house. I opened it to find Eleanor standing there, dressed impeccably in pearls, lips curved with satisfaction. She stepped inside without invitation, brushing past me as though she owned every square inch. Spotting the papers on the table, her smile widened. "Finally, order returns," she declared. "I told you rebellion would fail." Her arrogance ignited fury hotter than fire. For months she had manipulated me, bribed me, threatened me, orchestrated chaos, all for control. My voice shook as I snapped, "You destroyed everything. You never wanted family, you wanted puppets." Adrian flinched at my outburst, his gaze flicking toward his mother with dawning realization. Eleanor laughed softly, dismissively. But Adrian's face hardened. For the first time, he saw her schemes not as protective but destructive. "Mother, did you pay her?" His words cut the room like knives. Eleanor's silence betrayed her instantly. His expression shifted from confusion to disgust. "You tried to buy my marriage?" Her composure cracked momentarily, pearls trembling against her collarbone. She attempted justification, legacy, dignity, bloodlines, but Adrian's fury erupted. "You don't love me. You love power." He shoved the papers away, storming upstairs, leaving Eleanor pale and speechless. For the first time, I felt her vulnerability. Without Adrian's loyalty, her empire crumbled. She turned to me, eyes burning with venom. "This isn't over." Then she stormed out, heels striking marble like gunshot. Shaken, I fled to Marcus that night, desperation fueling every step. When he opened his door, concern filled his eyes. I collapsed against him, breathless, whispering the entire story, Adrian's papers, Eleanor's unraveling, my fear of total ruin. Marcus lifted my chin, kissed me tenderly, and said, "Then we start now. No more hiding." We packed hastily, clothes stuffed into bags, hearts pounding. He promised new beginnings far from this poisoned city. Every caress between us that night felt like farewell to shadows, our love making fierce, desperate, unforgettable. I clung to him as though salvation itself resided in his arms. By morning, I returned briefly to collect final belongings. Adrian sat in the living room, calmer now, eyes tired but strangely gentle. "If you love him," he said quietly, "go. But don't pretend you were ever trapped. You chose this." His words, though painful, rang true. Tears slid silently as I nodded. Without bitterness, he whispered, "Goodbye." Leaving that house, stepping into dawn light, I felt both shattered and reborn. Eleanor's plan had indeed fallen apart, her money worthless, her grip broken, her son disillusioned. Adrian would rebuild, stronger without her manipulation. And I chose Marcus, not as an escape but as a declaration of my own autonomy. As the city disappeared behind us, Marcus held my hand firmly, his thumb tracing circles of reassurance. For the first time in years, my lungs filled deeply, freely. Betrayal, lust, scandal, they had led me here. But from ashes, something unshackled emerged.